Hi, everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Office Hours. Glad to have you today. I hope you've recovered from the cold. We actually got above freezing. I'm in Northeast Texas, outside of Dallas, and it finally got above freezing this afternoon. But it's heading back the other way. We have got a great lineup for you today. I hope you'll stick around. If you know of anybody who might benefit from this information, it'll be available on my live tab on YouTube following this stream. If you're not familiar with this organization, my name is John Self. For 27 years, I was a global executive recruiter. I've worked in 6 different countries on 4 continents, and I've worked across the United States. I think I was in 38 states, and no warrants out for my arrest. So I'm pleased to report that. Today we're going to talk about what do you do when you lose your job. Now, there are layoffs that are still going on. People are optimistic about the economy, but some of the banks are very concerned. Some of the KPIs for key performance indicators for the economy are still not good. And so, as a routine, you just have to be prepared. So people ask me this all the time. I lost my job and I was really confused and hadn't been looking for a job for a long time. So tell me what steps I should take. And that's what we're going to do today. So again, thanks for joining us. And one little housekeeping detail. After this stream, this particular broadcast, brought to you by Your Career Community, is not going to be available unless you're a member of the community. It's a $48 monthly membership. You have access to a lot of information and newsletter and a lot of trending information and about 11 or 12 active career courses for job search, for everything from the resume to how to prepare for the interview. We're going to touch on some of those issues today, but this is kind of a really quick kind of move through the process. Okay, so we're here. This is Office Hours. If you become a member, you'll join us every Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and it's repeated on YouTube. So that's something we're working on, and we're glad to have you. Today, and just about virtually every business day, but Fridays particularly, thousands of people across the globe will be told this is their last day at work. Now, the job they depended on to pay the rent, the light bill, to feed their families, along with all the other essential necessities of life, is no more. Now, that can rattle you. All of those of us who've been sacked before, even if it was a good thing, you were ready to get out of the organization, it's still an emotional, sort of a gut-wrenching thing, and you worry about the finances. And so this is something that we want to talk about. How can you be more efficient in pursuing a job? Now, aside from the obvious financial anguish it can cause, the stress of losing a job can also take a heavy toll on your psyche, your mood, your relationships, and overall mental and emotional health. Unfortunately, I know people who have gone through prolonged job searches and it ended up in divorce for their spouse. It really has. I've seen it weigh heavily on people. And so there's some steps you can take to be more efficient in your job search, but it's hard work. It's the hardest work you will probably do. And it's only going to get harder because of how much technology is changing the whole structure of talent acquisition. Now, our jobs, really, and this is really true for me, I'm living proof of this, are often more than just the way of making living. They influence how we see ourselves. It's who we are, as well as how others see us. And so it can really, really wreak havoc on an individual's confidence, on their mental health, as I said a minute ago, because this is so central to who we are. Now, energy and persistence can conquer all things, and I'm here to help you, to give you strength, to help you from giving up. Now, this is a quote from Happier Human, but one of the things I find in recruiting and now as a coach is that people really get down in the dirt, and they really get down in the dumps. Their stinger is in the dirt. And it can just wear on you. And there's only so much your spouse or your partner wants to listen to. And so part of what I do as a coach is that I stand behind people. I encourage them. I'm always looking for their positive attributes and reassure them. I've had people lately call me and worry about whether they were going to be able to afford rent and whether they were going to be homeless. A 39-year-old professional who had a great degree, who had been very successful, had some unusual financial commitments that she made, helped a family member or her mother, I believe. And so she had run down her savings a little bit, and then she lost her job on a layoff. And it was not going well. I did not connect with her until she had been out of work about 10 months on a 6-month severance. So she was already digging into her retirement money and savings. And she said, if I'm really scared to death that I'm going to be out on the street. And this is changing. Now, there are always, anytime people lose their jobs, there's always this kind of feeling, I'm never going to work again. I just can't, because there's so many rejections, there's so much anguish that you just feel like this is never going to work again. You can't remember what it was like to work. Well, I will tell you, you will work again. You may have to make some hard choices, and you may have to be real creative in how you bridge your current situation to the time you get a new job. But it's for the most part, most people, it works out. You just have to work hard and have a lot of faith. Okay, so it happened. Now what? First of all, do not sign a release when you go to meet with HR. They want you to sign something right away. Listen, HR has an important role to play in the organization, but that person by your side is not always on your side, as Steve Harvey likes to say. And although HR people are not bad people, their obligation, once they've laid you off, is not to expose the organization to any more liability and not to give you too much wiggle room. They want you out of the building, and they want you to sign the papers and everything as quickly as possible. If you're a manager, you may get a severance agreement. If you're an executive, you'll probably have a more complex severance agreement. Do not sign it. They're going to want you to sign it right away. Do not do that. Say, look, this is really an emotional shock. I think you can understand. I'm going to take this home and look at it, and I want to talk to my spouse about it and my lawyer. And let it go at that. Don't make any other comments or anything. Take it home. Do not allow yourself to be bullied, okay? The second thing is, do not get angry, all righty? That's something that you just really can't allow that to happen. When you get angry, okay, it puts you at a disadvantage. So do not get angry, because you could impact your severance agreement, okay? So that's something that I would encourage you to pay attention to. Ask for an explanation. How many people were selected? There's a viral video going around now of a woman who was terminated online, and they've got all of this. It is the most botched up abortion mess I have ever seen. If these people were HR professionals, they need to go back and get reschooled. It was a disaster. They treated the person really badly, and they couldn't provide any information. They were just there to say goodbye. So you're entitled. If you've been getting good reviews, if you've been getting good performance reviews, then you just calmly say, I am surprised, and I know that you have to make hard decisions, but I'm very surprised because I was working hard trying to avoid this. I had been told by my boss that my performance was exceptional. He valued my presence in the organization. He said I met or exceeded all of my goals. So just help me understand before I leave today, how people were selected, because I feel like this is a shock to me, because here you are laying me off, and I've been a top performer. How did you make these decisions? That's something that they may not want to tell you, but it's okay to ask that. Okay, I would tell you that. Let's see this. Get everything unlocked here. There we go. The one thing that I found, that a lot of people, when they get laid off, they are embarrassed. Okay, they don't want anybody to know, so they just want to slink off and go home and hide. Okay, the first thing I want to encourage you to do is start a job search career journal. Every day, record your thoughts, but start by recording what you're grateful for. because I know it doesn't feel like you have anything to be grateful for, but being grateful every day, looking for something to be grateful, will help you stay focused, and it will help you lift your spirits, because there are going to be some dark days. There are going to be some dark, tough days for you in the job market the way it is now. And so you want to start with gratitude. You want to keep track of who you're talking to, who you're calling, network people that are helping you, that sort of thing. After several days, you want to put together an upbeat email for your colleagues, your career network. Don't be ashamed to say, I've left the company and it was time for me to begin a new chapter in my life. And I, will be letting you know I'm taking this as a really important career step up. And, just be very positive. Try to flip the situation. I didn't get fired. I'm now moving up in my career, and I would appreciate your advice and counsel. Don't be afraid to send that. That is not something you should be embarrassed. Why? Because one of those people may have a great job in their own company, okay, that you might not know about otherwise. So review your severance. Then after you've got that email done and you've sent that out, then review the severance and sign it. Give yourself 2 or 3 days. Now, the HR people are going to say, you got to have it done by 5 p.m. Friday or the offer's off the table, stuff like that. You're not going to get, if they're too curt, too rude, then just say, well, I'm just going to turn this over to my attorney, and we'll respond within the timelines. And let it go and leave. Just get out. Now, when after you've got the severance worked out and you kind of know how much time you've got on money and how much is going to come in, you need to sit down with your spouse or your partner and talk about household expenses. What can you reasonably cut back? Don't give up your ACHE membership if you're a healthcare person, because then you won't have access to the membership directory with all the emails and telephone numbers and for senior leaders. So don't do that. But find ways that you can reduce your cost, monthly expenses, because it may take you 6 to 8 months or longer to find a new job, especially if you don't have an established network. Now, everybody says, well, I don't really want to talk about this. I just don't feel comfortable reaching out to people. So you're insecure. So guess what? The rest of the world is too. We all are when it comes to these situations. So one of the things I want to emphasize is don't overestimate the competition and underestimate yourself. That happens all the time. It's going to be ferocious competition, but you are up to the challenge if you get ready and if you work hard. You are better than you think, according to Harv Eker, who is an entrepreneur, a speaker, an inspirational speaker, and an author. Okay, Babe Ruth said this, the Sultan of Swing said, every strike brings me closer to the next home run. Well, you're going to have some strikes. You're going to have a lot of hits and swings and misses, and that's just part of it. So don't let that get you down, because it's everything you're doing. If you're working hard every day and pushing yourself forward, even to do the things you may not feel comfortable doing, you can and will be successful. Okay. Now, this work is going to be harder. Finding a job today is harder than the job you just left, to be perfectly honest. First of all, it's not going to be as fast as you want it to be. Everybody always laughs about that after they found their next better job. Gosh, it took a lot longer than I thought it would. Communication will be inconsistent or non-existent. Some of the recruiters are just unbelievably bad about communicating. Ghosting, where the people say they'll get back to you. We like your resume, we'll get back to you. You never hear from them again. That is also common. 95% of all the prospective employers you're going to deal with are using something called applicant tracking systems. This is an automated AI-driven process that reviews all the resumes that are received. A human does not see your resume. So in order for you to be seen by a real recruiter, you have to have a high scan score. And that means that you have to use the keywords and key phrases and from the jobs, some of the job summary. Now, in some summaries, they're pretty brief. You can update your resume without much time. I worked with somebody the other day. It was a very complex job summary, about 1.5 pages, had a lot of information in it, which was good. But it took 1.5 hours to update and customize the resume. But you must do that. I know that's a pain in the butt. I'm sorry, but if you don't do it, you're not going to get seen. For every 10 resumes submitted, 7 or 8 are never seen by a human because they are either not qualified in 85 to 90% or better, and they haven't used keywords. They just submit generic, oh, this will all work out. They, all these people, what they're saying, what they're telling me about that, that's nothing. I've been doing this a long time. I've found jobs before. I don't need to worry about that. Well, guess what? You do, and if you don't, you're going to be 8 or 9 months into a search, and you're not going to be very far along. So pay attention. Do that every time you submit a resume. Now let's talk about something that's really important. If you have a network, use it, leverage it. Notify them you're beginning the next chapter of your career. Be very upbeat. Don't necessarily ask them for a job. Just tell them what's happening and tell them you'll keep them informed and get back with them as you progress through this process and let them know how you're doing. If you do not have a network, you will have to rely on online applications. Now, please don't get engaged in network begging. That is, you don't have a network, but you start calling people trying to get in, say, please help me find a job. That happens. And that really is very off-putting to the networking person. And even if they had a job, they'd probably not be inclined to share it with you because you're not being very professional. So you want to, if you don't have a network, you don't have a network. You may start building one, and you may reach out, and if people are particularly friendly, just say, listen, if you hear of anything, let me know. This is kind of what I'm looking for, and I know you're busy, and so I won't bug you, but thanks very much. Keep it brief. But, I can't tell you how many times people call me as a recruiter and say, John, I was a chapter president of ACHE. You know a lot of people. Find me a job. Not help me find a job, but find me a job. Well, folks, if you want me to find you a job and you want me to put a lot of effort into it, then you're going to have to write a very big check, because if you're making $200,000 or $300,000, your search fee, if a search firm did this, would be somewhere between $70,000 and $120,000 or $140,000. That's what they would charge the client for placing you. So it's an expensive, time-consuming process. You have to learn how to do this. You have to take more responsibility for managing your career. It's going to take you, on average today, and I've talked to a lot of applicants, and they say, no kidding, 60 to 80 applications to achieve one job offer. That's really tough. A friend of mine who's in the market said he's got 3 very active projects going forward, and he said he's probably sent over 100 inquiries and 100 applications, and that's extremely time consuming. Now, one of the problems is that the industries like communications, telecommunications, technology, healthcare, there have all been some contraction. And so there are not as many management jobs, but there are a lot of people looking for management jobs. There are fewer still executive jobs, and there are a lot of people that, ready to start their career, ready to move up in their career. And so they're all out there looking for work. Your odds are for an online application average are about 150 to 200 or 300 to 1. That's it. I saw an ad a few minutes ago for a job in Dallas for $160,000. And there were already 289 people applied for it. So the odds when you apply, 289 to 1. Now, you improve your odds if your resume is really highly focused on the job at hand. It has keywords and phrases that they are looking for. And you have 90+% of the selection criteria requirements. You have a better chance. But there are so many people out there that it's just really an uphill battle. And that's why you have to apply to so many different jobs. Now, again, having a network, if you don't have one, it's not really going to help you now. This is something you have to work on for the future. But this is something you absolutely have to do. If you think, and I've had several people tell me this, that they never really invested time for a network and then they got laid off. And several people have said, I am never not going to be networking again because this has been absolutely the most painful, frustrating, just debilitating experience I've ever been through. I never want to get caught without a job and not have a network to support me. So do that, please. Please, please do that, because it's only going to get worse. They're adding more and more technology and more automation. and recruiters are going to be more about coordinating logistics, and the computers, the recruiters are going to be about coordinating logistics, and the computers are going to be doing the heavy lifting about finding candidates and screening candidates. They now have, for LinkedIn, a scanner that can go through thousands of applications or profiles online, people that don't even know the job exists, in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. Now you've got all these passive candidates that they can add to the pool. And if you've gotten a letter from a LinkedIn direct mail and it has a little picture with a recruiter's face in there, that's how they found you. Oh, your name came up in the search. No, your name came up in the scan. Okay. We're going to talk about your LinkedIn profile in just a minute. Okay. Excuse me. Let's go. That popped up. I'm going to close that out so it doesn't interrupt us anymore. So when you lose your job, if you don't have much severance and you don't have much cash reserves, you're going to be so rushed to get into the market. Don't do it. You may not be able to take all the time that would be ideal, but wait a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. When you lose a job, even if you're unhappy with the company you're working for, you're going to go through the stages of grief. And those of us who've been sacked in the past, we understand this, because I didn't think, really, that it would happen to me, because, hell, I've been doing business development and been doing recruiting for a long time. But when I was taking on a special assignment for a health system in East Texas, they felt like I wasn't the right person for the job anymore and sent me packing without any severance. And I had to clear my throat. We had to go back and forth a little bit, and I ended up with 6 months severance, but that's not a lot of money. So you understand that when you get fired, it's very emotional. It's not uncommon for people to cry when they try to tell their staff goodbye. That's okay. That's human. You're human. Don't worry about that. You have nothing to apologize for. But you're going to go through denial. You're going to be angry. You're going to bargain, depression, and acceptance. Now, bargaining is, oh, I'll work for less money if you'll just keep me around. Don't do that to yourself. First of all, they don't do it very often, and when they do, it's a disaster. So do not bargain to get your job back for a lower pay, or, I'll just do anything you want me to do. You'd be better off looking for a better job. Now, the second thing you need to do, once you as you're starting to process, now, if you don't have a lot of cash, your window is going to be very narrow. So some of these things you're going to be doing simultaneously. Okay. You can't really change the grief issue. That just happens naturally, but be aware of it. Okay. I've seen candidates when that hadn't really processed it, and it was a painful termination. And when they got to an issue and they said, why were you terminated? The guy started crying. I mean, it was just spontaneous. So be aware of that. Don't think, oh, I'm macho, I've got this. Everybody goes through it. Okay. Compose your exit statement. Do not do that while you're talking to a recruiter about a potential job. Do not do that when you show up in front of the client. That's just craziness. Compose your exit statement. Less is more. Be positive. Okay? Then develop your value brand statement. Excuse me. This is really about when you are really for your interviewing. Why should we hire you? That's what this statement is all about. Develop that now. Understand what your value is, because you will be, when you do that, you are more focused. It's cold as heck. It's time for some tea. Yeah, that was tea. Yes, there wasn't any single malt in that. I assure you. But your VBS is basically putting together and inventorying your strengths, and come down with 4 or 5 signature strengths, and then be able to document, why are those strengths? List out what have you done that makes that a strength. Then create or update your resume. This is really, really important. Formatting is critical. Okay. Now, a lot of people say, well, I really want it to be pretty so the recruiter will see it. The recruiter's not going to see it. A computer is going to look at it. And it's funny. Your resume we always told people the resume is the first interview, and it is. The problem is you're not there, and neither is the employer. It's a computer. And that's only going to be more sophisticated and more powerful going forward. So formatting is important because if it's not formatted in a way that the scanner can easily read, it will reject your resume, and the employer won't know and you won't know. It'll be ghost. Okay. And it's called dumping it into the black hole. So we have a resume guide you can download from johngself.com. Click the little right button on the membership tab, and it's a great little guide to help you get started. Now, every resume, if you hire a resume writer, that's great. And a lot of them, some of them charge $500, $600, $1,400, $2,000, $3,000. Even when they finish your resume, they may tell you, we've optimized it for your industry, so you're not going to have to change it too much. That is total falderall. Okay. They have optimized it for your industry, but you need to then customize it for the job, because if you're not ticking off the keywords and key phrases from that resume, if you don't have the experience and you're not emphasizing those issues that they're asking for prominently in your resume, you're not going to get picked. Okay, the computer will eliminate you. So the next thing you need to do is supercharge your LinkedIn profile. That's really important now, not because it's a great source for peer-to-peer networking. It's not. And you can't ask people that you're just connecting with to find you a job. Don't do that. It really diminishes your brand. But what it is, and what you can use it for, is an incredibly powerful billboard. And with a lot of companies and a lot of search firms going through LinkedIn profiles now, and scanning those profiles, if you have a vibrant, really focused profile that emphasizes your successes, your strengths, and you have some post and maybe some video, you have a good header. If you don't have a good header and a good picture, then you may get passed up. So you need to supercharge your LinkedIn profile. A lot of people who don't have big networks are saying that they're getting a lot of their leads about jobs from LinkedIn, not because they're going on the job boards, but because they're being contacted by people who see their profiles. We're going to talk about posting in just a minute, so we'll get to that. Now, there's a daily routine you got to follow. As I said earlier, this is going to be one of the hardest jobs you have. You're going to have to commit 5 to 7 hours in your home office Monday through Friday. That's every day. You got to do that much work. Now, there are going to be days that you're hammered lower, that you're going to feel lower than hammered whale poop. And an old friend of mine, a doctor, used that expression. So, and that's true. Any of us, we've all gone and looked for jobs. It's all been, there's been a lot of frustration. You get a lot of bad people that don't treat you with respect, but you got to put the effort in. If you're not putting the effort in, you're not going to pull out a job on the other side. You got to at least do Monday, Thursday. Friday afternoons are usually very, very dead in recruiting circles, but that doesn't mean that you can't be posting. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be in the office doing research, thinking of ways to get your name and your value proposition out there. Now, you want to apply for positions where you meet 85 to 90% of the selection criteria. Don't waste your time going, oh, well, something will work out. It can take you an hour and a half to 2 hours to make an application. Don't waste your time doing something that you have no chance of getting. And since people don't look at these resumes anymore, it's done by a computer. The recruiters only see those resumes that the computer says is within the parameters of who you should be looking at. And in-house recruiters, corporate recruiters, pay attention to that because they're under a lot of pressure for time to hire and cost to hire. So, they're not going to go out and go do research. An executive recruiter, a retained recruiter might look at a lot of different resumes. Their resume scanners are really to fit the resume into the system. And when they do searches, they're computer search, but they're going to look at the resumes. So it's much more, although recruiters have their downside. Right now, executive recruiters, those are the people that are making decisions based on what they see in the resume and then the screening interview. You have to customize your resume based on keywords and phrases for each job summary. You can't do generics. Do not submit a cover letter unless otherwise requested. Why? Because the computer will try to read the cover letter as a resume, and it could mess things up, and you could get pitched out. Okay? Now, another part of your daily routine is to try to schedule coffees with a vendor connections, colleagues from professional organizations. You got to try to stay connected. You got to be visible in the community 3 to 4 times a month. Okay, that's really, really important. The vendors can be a great source of information for you, especially if you say, look, I just need to have a confidential conversation with you. They're going to be careful because they have a little relationship with a client, but they'll try to give you suggestions and maybe point you in the right direction. If you're a senior VP and you're looking at various types of equipment, you always want to treat your vendors with respect. Even if you don't hire them to deliver the product or service, stay in touch with them. Why? Because they can be great sources of information if you have to do a job search. Okay? Now, you need to post 4 to 6 times a week. Okay? That may be 4 to 6 days a week. I think that's a good idea. Now, Monday and then the weekend are not great days, but you can get a lot of people get a lot of good interaction and engagement on Monday and particularly Saturday, Sunday. Now, emails with video can also be a very powerful tool. We use something called SendSpark, and you basically record a video. It puts it in a GIF that can be animated and can be used in a DM or a direct or an email. And you can also use it, post the video on your LinkedIn site. Video is extremely powerful. It is here to stay. And the one thing that the pandemic did is that it turned us all on to the importance of video. And you may not feel comfortable with it, but you're going to have to get comfortable with it. Okay. So that's something we want to encourage you to do. When you put video on your LinkedIn profile, it really strengthens your ability to be noticed and to advance your job search. Now, you also need to be flexible. Geographic locale, interim assignments, contract roles, that sort of thing. People say, nope, I'm not going to do anything. And if I said, I got to make this much money and I want to do it here and it's got to be this kind of job. Okay, that's great. If you don't have a network, you may never know about that job to begin with, okay? Because a lot of jobs, 50 to 60% of all the jobs that are filled every year are never posted. So you have to have a network. But if you don't have a network, you're going to have to take what you can get. But don't be too rigid. Be flexible on your locale. Talk about with your spouse or partner about what areas you would be willing to relocate to. Well, the kids are in school. I understand, but things happen in life. And everybody will recover. Okay, now the average management executive job search today takes between 8 and 16 months. And that number is ticking up. It always expands a little bit toward the end of the year, but it's still ticking up. So you need to be prepared emotionally, financially for that kind of cycle. Digging your heels on relocation, you can add 3 to 6 months to your job search, and I don't think that's something that you really are interested in doing. Now, let's talk about preparing for the screening interviews, because although it's a fairly innocuous interview, a lot of people fumble into the end zone on this. And one of the things I would tell you is dress for success. And what I mean by that, I mean that wear an outfit that you would wear to the office, and or wear something business casual. Put on a sport coat and a nice shirt. Because even if they're talking to you just on the phone, it changes your whole demeanor. It changes your sense of confidence, etc. if you're dressed for the part. So don't sit there in a holey t-shirt and your running shorts or your nightgown and your hair rollers. That's craziness. Don't do that, because it really does spill over into your performance. So and drinking a beer is not a really great idea, but you knew that. Be prepared, because one of the things they may ask you is, tell me about yourself. They're not interested in your resume necessarily. They want to know who you are and why they should hire you. And you got to connect with them really quickly. You got to do your homework. What are they looking for? Why are they looking for it? If you have friends that do business with that hospital and they can give you some background, that's great. But be focused, because most screening interviews are 20 on the short end, 20 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes is pretty average. And they have several questions they're going to want to get through. But if you give winding, kind of disjointed answers, they're not going to get through their questions, and that's probably going to cost you in terms of advancement. Now, in every interview, you should always have 2 or 3 questions ready to ask. This is really important because you need to start understanding why the position is open. What happened to the last person that worked here? What's the turnover in the department like? How are you guys going to define success for somebody who accepts this position? And then ask about any internal candidates. That's perfectly fine because that, a lot of times that changes the calculus of whether they're going to fill inside or outside. Now, video is here to stay, and I would tell you that the 2 things on the left-hand side are no's. The first top picture there is the problem is he's an African American, wonderful guy, extraordinarily articulate, but he had a big bright light behind him, and all I could see was just this black round face. I couldn't see any of his features. If you come up for a Skype interview or a Zoom interview, and what we're seeing is the backlit, profound backlighting, or we're seeing you poorly framed, that first impression means a lot. So you have to get ready for these things. Video is here to stay. It is TV. You got to respect it for that. And it may be closed circuit, but you have to absolutely make a great impression on the person interviewing. On the right is a yes. She has good lighting. The camera angle is the camera light, the little light at the top of your screen, is at eye level with her. Mine's a little bit elevated, and so, but I can't get the desk any lower or my chair any higher. And I tried sitting on a book, and that just was not optimistic. So, it's not really something that's too distracting. But one of the things that you really want is good lighting and good audio. And I hope we had good audio today. Last week we had some problems with the system and had to re-record. You want to have a good background. Be aware of what's in the background, and use audio. Now, this person, you can see on that right photo, she finally clarified for humanity what coffee table books are really for. She's got a bunch of coffee table books stacked up on a box, and then she's got her Apple computer at the top. That's called a halo light. Don't get the little tiny ones. Get a good one that can really provide you good lighting. If you have lower lighting, sometimes it makes you look older. It makes you look tired. It makes the picture seem kind of gray. So be very, very careful. That particular picture was from the pandemic. The woman is Stephanie Ruhle from MSNBC and CNBC, and she was doing cut-ins with the network from her home, I believe, in New Jersey. She may be in New York, but anyway, that is actually a network going to do something on network. And I say that to you and show this to you so you understand. Look, whether you're doing network cut-ins or job interviews, it's pretty much the same. You've got to be professional, and you have to be lit well and have a good microphone. Okay? And sometimes the audio mic on your computer is good enough. Now, if you have a Dell and the camera is down low above the keyboard, find there's a stand that you can get that allows you not to have an interview where you're looking across the keyboard. That was one of the dumbest designs I've ever seen in my life. Now, this is a little tip here. What you don't want to do, and I work at this. Believe me, man, I work at this all the time. And that's trying to keep eye contact with that little green light right there. That little green light is to the right side of your camera. And that's what the arrow's highlighting. Between the camera, I have 2 index cards with my notes that things I really want to emphasize in the interview. And I taped them up either side of the camera. Nobody else can see them but me. I still have enough of the screen that I can see. Now I have a 21-inch screen, but I can still have enough of the screen I can see the person who's interviewing me. But that, even if it's an obscured view, that's better than kind of looking away to your notes. I'm just looking slightly to my left, but it looks like, and then you go over here and then you look back. It looks like you're not interested. That whatever on your desk is more interested than the question you're being asked. So if you have notes, it's okay to tape them up either side of the camera. Okay, now tip for in-depth interviews. The screening interviews are going to be shorter. The in-depth interview needs to really be more focused. Now, every job can be broken down into 4 to 6 categories. Okay, and each category lists your strengths, your weaknesses, 2 or 3 examples of how you were successful in dealing with those issues. You got to provide answers. If there's a question that you're afraid that they may ask, that it's one of those things where you just made a bad mistake and it may have gotten you fired or it may have gotten in the newspaper and you're scared to death they're going to ask you about it, have a great answer prepared and memorized, not memorized, but learned, so that they probably won't ask it. But guess what? You know you got that taken care of, and so you don't worry about it. And so that's a really important thing, because being confident and having presence is really, really important. Okay. The next thing you want to do is you also want to have questions that you would ask if you were leading the interview. So what you want to be able to do for each category, and it's like, it may be human resources, it may be marketing, it may be finance or financial administration, it may be budget, whatever it is, you can break it down, and it's 4 to 6 categories. And then for each category, there's a form we have that's called the core and categorical form, and you go through and you put, okay, on this issue, I've got, on this thing of human resources, what am I good at? Well, I reduce my turnover. It's the lowest in the hospital, or lowest in the business, or lowest in the industry, whatever it is. Have those examples and have a little story that you can tell that illustrates this. Okay? Why? Because people remember stories more than facts and figures, and research has verified that again and again and again. Okay, so one of the other things you want to do is you want to be prepared. And I think you want to do your homework on the organization. That's really important. And you also want to prepare for each interview. Connect your strengths with their needs. Now break down each job using the core and categorical form that we're going to put up for you to download. And then rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. Don't get it all memorized, but practice how you want to answer questions you anticipate being asked. And the first one you're probably going to be asked is, tell us about yourself. And you want to hit that one out of the ballpark. Hey, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat box. I didn't mention that up front. I apologize. If you want to see a replay of this, it'll be available later today on YouTube for about a week, and then it'll be taken down and put in with the other previous broadcasts that we did on office hours for our members. So we encourage you to become a member of John G. Self Guiding Your career community. You have access to our online courses. You have access to discounted coaching, and we're happy to try to help you any way we can. So no questions. I really thank you all for being here today, and I hope that you'll join us in the morning for Career Live at 7:30. We're going to be talking. What is our deal there? You've got the job. Now, how do you avoid screwing up? Did you know that a high percentage of people that work their tails off to get a job don't even last 18 months? How would you like to do another job search in just 18 months, especially if you don't have a network? It'll absolutely kill you. So believe me, you want to be tune in the morning for Career Live. It's 30 minutes, and we're going to talk about steps you can take to adapt to your new organization. I'm John Self, and I really appreciate you being with us today.